Don't be so picky, Gertie. Here you go, Mabel. Eat off the ground, children. Hey, what's clucking, peeps? I'm Georgiana, and welcome to Hairy Tail Farm. I want to discuss starting a homestead, how I got started, and what might help or hopefully inspire some of you who are looking to do this, or to get your first home, or to get out of the city, because that's always advisable in my book, but that's I know my opinion. It's 2024 now that I'm filming this. I bought my house in 2011. I moved up here to Ephraim, Utah from Tucson, Arizona. I was looking for a couple of things. I was wanting to get away from the heat, get out of a big city, and get away from the crime. And I had a goal. My goal had been to buy a house by the age of 40 and get chickens, particularly Polish chickens. As you've all noticed by now, I've got mostly just Polish chickens. And I've got some ducks that have hair on them, and we've got some fluffy rabbits. But I almost met that goal. It took several years of focus, of trying, figuring it out, dreaming, picturing it, how am I going to do it, type of a thing. And I got my house by the age of 42. I'm 55 now, so I've been here for a while. And it worked out really good. So I bought my house. It's a 4-bedroom, 1-bath house, about 1,400 square feet. It is really old. I bought it for $98,000 with no money down, with a rural housing development loan, and I was only making $10 an hour. So this is totally possible. In today's world where we've got more digital jobs and more remote work, it's kind of the only plus that came out of the crisis of 2020 when that hit, is that a lot of companies quickly shifted and adjusted to letting people work from home. I know the company I was working for was working towards it. They were planning it. So they actually were able to do it rather quickly, though, because they were starting to plan more people working from home. But this gives you the opportunity to not have to live in a big city. I know some people love it, but I find a little more security outside of the big city. That's where a lot of stuff goes down, is in bigger cities, and the traffic, and all the time in the car, and it's just chaotic. So I know it's not my thing, but there is a lot of more independence and freedom, I feel like, in smaller towns, rural communities, and these loan options make it more possible. In 2011, I did the people selling the house did, they kind of carried the down payment portion. When I looked up online, though, in 2012, a majority, especially like this year, they're saying a lot of the rural housing development loans, you don't need any money down. The people I bought it from was really cool. I was going to make monthly payments for the portion until I could get a refinance in a year or two. But the owner, my house has a big metal shop type garage. The owner I bought it from, he was a woodworker. He had all the equipment, big tools. The whole garage was just a shop full of equipment. And so he got to keep that while they were building their log cabin. So I didn't have to make payments. He just kept using the garage for like a year at least, I think it was. And then I refinanced, got everything all lumped together for the $98,000, and I am happy with the interest rate. I was at 3.8% at that time. I know interest rates are ridiculous right now, but you can always refinance. I mean, they underestimate that option. You think you get a house, you get a loan, that's it. And it's not. You can refinance to a better deal. It's worth the fees to me. It's worth it to me to use more like credit unions or even loan brokers. I went to a mortgage house, and using a broker, I prefer the fees. They really make it easy for you and walk you through everything. I wasn't really clear what I was doing. They have to put you through an FHA loan and get denied first. and then he can do rural housing. And I didn't think I was going to get it, but they did. So who knows when our genius feds are going to ever lower the interest rates on homes again. But if you can get a house at a good enough price, I kind of want to go over different options of what are you willing to do if you want to have this independence or this freedom, or try doing stuff more by yourself, or with the help of your neighbors or family. It's not total loners. Some people are, and that's fine too. But I want to kind of go over my theory of perspective, like the power of perspective. I remember in the 90s, and I do not mean to diminish what anybody's going through. I've gone through some really tough times. Everybody goes through some tough times. So poverty is tough. But I remember watching an episode of Oprah, and she had this, I think it was like a mother-daughter. It's hard to remember exactly, but they were living, I believe, in Tennessee, and they just had a small, like, cabin that didn't have electricity and no central water. And it was so depressing. And I just remember being so sad afterwards. I thought, oh, these poor people, right? And it's like, and that would be so hard. It gets you at least to imagine, how would you live like that? What would you do, right? So fast forward to, when did I move? Was it 2020 or? No, it was, no, sorry, not 2020. It was 1999. I sold almost everything I had in Tucson and ran away to Alaska. I moved to Haines, Alaska, which is at the top of the Inside Passage. I did pick something that was a little more maritime, which means, yes, it's cold, but it's not like Fairbanks cold. And I moved up there. I was up there for a couple years, and I ended up getting a boyfriend, and he lived with his mom and his sister. They all still lived in the same house, and it was the cutest little house. I was already fascinated with tiny homes back in the 90s before they were a thing. And then seeing the house that they built, or were still working on building themselves, it was about, yes, they'd had this property for 6 years. When I got there, they spoke with the owner. This is something I'm going to discuss too. I'm going to have different links in the description box below, because I'm going to be showing you some video clips from other channels and showing you their links to those videos and stuff like that. But they talked to the owners and said, we don't have any money down. Can I make payments on this lot of land? And he made a deal with them, and they made their payments, right? They built for nothing. They were in a tiny little travel trailer. They built the barn first. So Grant, being the only boy, he slept up in the loft through winter in Alaska. Even when I was there, they didn't have running water yet. They did have electricity. A lot of people there, there's a lot of people who live off the grid. There's a lot of people who live in the bush. And that's always the age-old discussion everybody likes to ask. If you had to choose, would you go for water first or electricity first? So it's a really interesting concept. So these are things to consider, like, what are you willing to do? But the perspective was the pride. They were so happy. They were a happy family, and they had pride in the house they had already built and were building. Right before I left, they just got, or that was the time before I left, yeah, they got running water in the kitchen. Still hadn't had a bathroom yet. Everybody comes up with outdoor, compost options that they do. A lot of people up there in Alaska. It was just such a fascinating experience, and I really, especially my boyfriend's mother, it just actually taught, and his sister, I just learned a lot from all of them. And I was just really impressed with the power of perspective and setting goals. And this is what we're going to pool our money for next. We're going to build this, and starting with nothing, and I just think that's awesome. So it's like, what are you willing to do to have your own freedom and independence? Whether it's a smaller house, piecing it together, starting with land first, and then, well, what am I going to live in first? So I've got different ideas to throw out. I'll skip to some videos here in a bit. I'm outside still now, but I'm going to have links to the rural housing development information, because there's income limits and qualifications, and the limits are you can't make up to a certain dollar amount, which most of us, a lot of us are not there. So a lot of people will really qualify for this. And so I'm just going to read a description about the basics of what it says a description is. What is a USDA loan? A USDA loan is a special type of mortgage or grant given out to help rural, lower-income residents buy or repair a home. The USDA loan program is run by the Rural Development Office of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, hence the name, and it offers several different options depending on your circumstances and what you need help with. Each is meant to assist people who wouldn't qualify for other types of home loans, like your traditional FHA loans. So you get to buy, build, or make repairs to a home in a rural area. Though eligibility isn't limited to first-time home buyers, these loans can be especially helpful if it's your first time out, because USDA loans generally don't require a down payment, which is just awesome. So I think if you're younger, middle-aged like I was, or even older, and you're like, I need something cheaper because, you know, you can't function in the city. There's one of the things I'm obsessed with are the people that live in vans, the van life. There's even people in their 70s living in vans to make life affordable and have control over your living situations, where they convert the vans. They've got little kitchens, a place to go to the bathroom in there a bit. You know, everybody has their different options. So tell me, what are you willing to do? There's like park models. My parents lived in a park model. It is what's nice about those. They can be delivered and on wheels, but they count as an RV and not a mobile home. So you have options for loans. They're less expensive than mobile homes. A lot of them run $40,000 to $80,000. They have to be under 399 square feet or less, but it doesn't count the loft space or the deck space. So they're good tiny homes. So I'm going to show you some clips of those. I'm really fascinated by those. And I'm also a huge fan of solar power. I'm going to show a couple of news clips too, that I'll refer back to, of current state of the news these days. I don't mean it to be fear-mongering, but the whole point is, if we just take what bad stuff does and is happening in the world and just try to use it to empower us to be more independent or brave to take the next step or to reprioritize if possible. I know money's tight, but I am a huge fan of solar power. So I really want to get a backup solar, and I'm looking into that. I've got a link. It is an affiliate link, but I have an appointment tomorrow to discuss these options, and I'm hoping to get some backup solar. My question is, I want to have it running in the garage. I've got a freezer in the garage, and then we've got the big refrigerator freezer in the house. If I could at least keep those two running, plus all the devices and some lights. I've got my my little burner in the kitchen, maybe wash a load of laundry, you know, stuff like that. If you could kind of rotate. I want to be able to have some control over power. Coming from Arizona, I was constantly baffled and, quite frankly, disgusted. Especially if you're back east or in New England, because I lived in New England for a while too. I like moving around, I like travel. But where a new house goes up every now and then, right? I remember how different it was. In Arizona, and a lot of people out in the West know this, I'm sure other parts of the country too, where housing developments go up like small cities. I mean, they mass produce houses, but do they ever incorporate solar? And it's because there's a deal and the power companies don't want them to. Yeah, seriously? Because somebody else wants to control that power. That's part of the reason why I'm fascinated with tiny homes or van life, or people who are mobile or just trying to get some solar. It's free once you've paid for it, and you're renewable, and you've got some control over it. And especially in any sort of cases of disaster, including from other countries or environmental or weird things that happen locally. Because I took care of an elderly woman in Tucson, and we get monsoons, and that storm took out this whole Wrightstown Road. And this woman lived alone. And it's like in the middle of summer with no air conditioning. And it was almost a week before she got power back. You know, so there's always different situations. And that's in Arizona, where there really is no weather, you know, typically. So there's just, you never know what's going to happen. I actually want to do a weather vlog. Because that's another thing, as a homesteader with animals, I'm constantly checking weather, trying to keep up on it. But I really want, if you have any questions, or I want to open discussion, or if people will share this video, if you find anything helpful to somebody in your family or friend, you think some information or some motivation might be helpful, or people have questions, I would really like to open some dialogue, and hopefully some people will put some questions in the comment boxes, or even share your story a bit or what you do. Some of us are at different stages of independence and preparedness. If you are in the city, a lot of these, what I'm looking at is like portable. If you have a south or even majority of a balcony that might get some decent amount of sunlight, you can get a little small solar backup that could get your certain things running, keep your certain things running, or certain lights. It's good to have some rechargeable lights. There's a lot of USB rechargeable things these days. So you can start small, even with one panel and maybe a little Jackery battery, little generator box. So there's options. But hopefully, if you're thinking about it or if you've been planning, keep the goal strong to work towards getting your own home and some of your own animals. While you were imagining what homesteading looks like for you, and before I show some cool footage of land and creative home ideas, I want to cut to some news footage from this past week. News I feel is important to be aware of. I have started getting my news from a YouTuber channel named It's Jimmy. He doesn't pick sides, and he shows where he gets his information from, which I think is really helpful. So in 10 to 15 minutes, you can get news that isn't always widely broadcasted among the general media. I went years not watching news because it stressed me out so much. But then in 2020, the world changed so suddenly, and I felt like really blindsided because I wasn't keeping up on any current events. So now I try to get a little news at least a few days a week to be more prepared, and at the very least, a little more emotionally prepared. So let's listen to these couple clips.
Yeah, so Janet Yellen warns that high prices could be here to stay. Listen to what she says here. While testifying before the Senate Banking Committee, Janet Yellen admitted that prices for most items are unlikely to return to where they were before the inflation crisis began in 2021, saying, quote, "I don't expect the level of prices to go down. Some prices will be higher than they were before the pandemic and will stay higher." Janet Yellen said during a contentious exchange with Senator John Kennedy, who, boy, they really just hate each other. Quote, "But wages have risen considerably, and the pace of price increases has now receded over the past 6 months. Prices for everything, including groceries, new cars, health insurances, have surged in 2021 and 2022 as a result of rampant inflation, which was caused by pandemic-induced disruptions in global supply chains, an extremely tight labor market, and increased consumer demand, fueled in part by stimulus cash." You can let me know your thoughts on that. Janet Yellen also says, quote, "We don't have to get the prices down because wages are going up." She said, noting that the median worker in the US can buy the same basket of goods as they did in 2019 with $1,400 left over. So Americans on average are better off in spite of the fact that the level of prices is higher. I don't know. Do you think that the average American is better off right now with prices higher and with the inflation that we just went through, the highest in 40 years? What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. So the FBI director just gave a major warning to not only Americans, but to many countries around the world about both China and Russia and what they're doing and what they have already done. Then he said this in Munich, Germany, to the entire world.
You might find your companies harassed and hacked, targeted by a web of corporate CCP proxies. You might also find PRC hackers lurking in your power stations, your phone companies, etc., poised to take them down when they decide you stepped too far out of line and that hurting your civilian population suits the CCP. And that targeting of critical infrastructure is something I want to take a minute to address. In some respects, it's not anything new. In fact, China-sponsored hackers pre-positioned for potential cyber attacks against U.S. oil and natural gas companies way back in 2011. But these days, it's reached something closer to a fever pitch. What we're seeing now is China's increasing build-out of offensive weapons within our critical infrastructure, poised to attack whenever Beijing decides the time is right. Take, for instance, PRC, persistent access the U.S. found in our critical telecommunications, energy, water, and other infrastructure. China-sponsored hackers known as Volt Typhoon were hiding inside our networks, lying in wait for the moment China might choose to use their access to hurt American civilians.
The news is quite often stranger than fiction, and yes, sometimes a little scarier. But we can use this knowledge to prepare as best we can for our own lives and situations. And if you don't want to take the route of buying an existing home, you can also start with a land purchase. I found a link called landwatch.com. I'm not affiliated. I just find them very interesting because you can find land deals all over the country. A lot have owner financing too, so like the example I gave in Alaska, that could be a great place to start or take steps or piece together your own property. Here is a video of one of their development listings that I think is a promising example.
Have you ever dreamed of a property where you have the freedom to build what you want, where you want, and when you want? The freedom to use your property recreationally as long as you like, whether that be in a tent, yurt, a van, RV, or camper. The freedom to come and go as you please without permits or fees. You are about to discover that such a dream property does exist. Landio is honored to present Freedom Ridge. In Freedom Ridge, there are 42 tracts of beautiful Tennessee land that range in size from 2.3 acres to 13.8 acres. All 42 parcels have been platted with road access. Power and internet is being run along each lot, which will enable you to enjoy modern comforts and connectivity while remaining grounded with the beautiful nature that God has created for us to experience. Freedom Ridge is located in northwest Tennessee. Here's Freedom Ridge on the map. About 35 minutes to the east is Clarksville, Tennessee, with a population of around 167,000, and Nashville is about an hour-and-a-half drive to the southeast.
Here's a video tour of a really nice park model, which is an option you can have for a smaller home, moved directly to your land, and you can even have it put on a foundation if you'd like. Other options are buying kit homes that are prefabbed in panels in manufactured places. They're quicker to build. You could also get floor plans online, even at Walmart, or you can even build in old silos, which is really affordable. This kit's on Etsy. There's also barn dominium, so you could get those delivered and build it out yourself on the inside with some decent square footage. There's a variety of options if you wanted to build your own and make it a little more affordable and work your way up from there. I hope some of these ideas were really helpful and maybe inspiring. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment box below. Or if you have suggestions of your own to share, or ideas or things you've done yourself. I know we're all at different stages and where we want to be in life or our own level of independence. So I really welcome everybody's ideas and opinions to share. I just would like to throw out as the last comment too, especially with the state of the world and the news and wars in other countries. If ever and when I do share stuff about bad news from other countries, I'd like to remind everybody that it's governments or the extremists that every country has. But some countries, their leaders are a little out of control right now. But there are literally billions of people across the planet in every country that are good people, that deserve love and respect. And so when bad stuff happens, sort of like when in 2020, there was a lot of hate going around. And I'm definitely not about hate. About the people. I just want to share news where sometimes bad stuff is coming from other countries, but it's typically the leaders or the extremists. It's not the people. I just like to throw that reminder out there about love. The world needs more peace and love. Thank you, and everybody have a good day. And remember to aim, if you're aiming for homesteading, homesteading is also a mindset. It's not always just about location. We could do the best we can with where we're at right now. So let's all work together, and good luck, everybody. See you in the next video. Say goodbye, Gertie Birdie.